So every time I buy a new vehicle, the very first thing I do is brakes. And the GMC was no different. I trailered it home, parked it, got it running in the driveway, but before I even drove it around the block, I did the brakes, did the rear drums, replaced all the hardware, wheel cylinders, did all the everything in the front, new discs. Everything got replaced. I just never trust that situation, and I want to be extra sure that the truck is going to stop. Everything else is easy after that point. And I drove it. I drove it for probably close to, I would say close to a year. And everything under the vehicle looked fine. I did never noticed anything out of the ordinary. We did the engine and transmission swap, so I was underneath that truck quite a lot. But then I started doing just a little bit more inspecting on the brake lines. They look like they normally look. They're a little crusty. They're a little, road grime and all that other normal stuff that you get on brakes and under vehicle stuff. But I'd had my hands on it enough when I was doing the fuel system and the fuel lines and all those things that I never really gave the brake lines much for consideration. Were they old? Absolutely. It's a 50 plus year old truck. It's going to have some wear and tear on it, but I never really considered or saw any issue with the lines leaking, having any sort of problem until one day I was underneath the truck and saw a line that I wanted to move just a little bit further away from the header. I barely touched it and it started leaking. And when I say it was leaking bad enough that had I had to get on the brakes hard, I don't know that that line would have sustained the pressure that's under. Now, I don't know anything about what the brake line sees for pressure on average, if a normal stop has the same amount of pressure as a full-on lock up the brakes on them hard type of deal. But if it does, then I would have put myself in the situation that I was trying to avoid every time I bring home a vehicle. I always do the brakes first, and in this case, I just neglected to go very further. The wheel cylinders, everything came off easy. If I would have twisted off a brake line in there on a hard line or something, then yeah, I can certainly see, looking at, changing or replacing the entire system. But none of those things happened. The wheel cylinders and the front calipers came off very easy. The lines looked okay. They didn't look great, but certainly nothing that I thought that I was going to expect to have any trouble with. So really, it kind of caused me to step back a little bit. And the truck sat for probably, I would say a good 5 or 6 months. It just hasn't moved. I just needed to kind of reassess everything and decide how I was going to go forward. Not really on this vehicle, but more on every vehicle going forward that I don't have a good understanding on. Now, the Chevelle's a fairly unique situation. The body's been off that car. So we did a body off, the brake lines and the fuel lines are all replaced. So I don't have that to worry about on that car, but certainly, with the junk that I haul home on occasion, I'm going to have to really consider, what that means going forward. That could have killed me. That could have been, or worse, it could have killed somebody else. And at my age, I can't wrap my head around that. Now, as a younger man, I probably would have thought about it and thought, well, that sucks. That's horrible. It could have been really bad. But the older you get, the wiser you get, the more you think about those things, I guess. And this one has been a really bad one. So after the truck sat for, like I say, 4, 5, 6 months, I just went ahead and ordered a new kit. I knew it was going to be a little difficult doing it here in my driveway, and I didn't really want to be laying underneath the truck trying to manipulate all these things. So the local tech school here, I know them very well. I volunteer some time over there. They gave me the opportunity to use one of their lifts, and that's what I've done. I've took the trailer over there with the truck on it, and we put it in there and been working on it ever since. So the nice thing about it is having the ability to, kind of do a little bit more inspection underneath there. Went ahead and ordered rear springs and the rear shocks. We did the rear front shocks quite a long time ago, but having the ability to kind of lay underneath there or stand underneath there and do all the work is certainly a lot nicer than trying to do it in a driveway. And these were a little challenging, but fortunately, doing it with the body on the truck, it wasn't too bad on this one. A little bit complicated, but really it's the lesson here that I learned. It's not the amount of work that I had to do to get it to where it is now, where the brakes work. They're dependable, they're reliable. I know they're right, and I know I'm not going to have a catastrophic failure because of something being, 50 plus years old and mostly rusted through. So really, at the end of the day, that's the lesson: is just doing the brakes wasn't good enough, and I'm usually better than that. And that's the thing that hurts the most is I could have put others and myself into an awful bad situation, and fortunately we didn't. So I guess there's a positive in it, that I just kind of found it, at least at that spot. But there are a lot of places on this system where these lines are just in bad shape. There's others that are pretty good. They're not that bad. They had enough, road grime or tar or whatever that got on them that kind of protected them a little bit. But there are some parts of this system that any of them could have gone. And all these little ugly situations here, could have added up to one big colossal failure. So I've taken enough time away from it. I've kind of thought about it enough and I guess punished myself enough thinking about it to know that there's a better lesson. So I can't encourage you enough to do that. Obviously, brakes is a big part of a project vehicle. I'll always continue to do those first, but now it's going to be a little bit more closer inspection of brake lines and just verifying that there's nothing going to creep up on you in the future that could put you in a really awful situation. So I apologize for this being kind of a little bit of a weird video, but I guess the flip side of it could have been much worse. So I'm very thankful that somebody was watching out for me upstairs and kept me out of harm's way on this one, and certainly, hopefully, it avoided anyone else, paying for my mistake here. So anyway, we've got the truck back, and some tuning videos are coming up soon. But yeah, this one kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit, and I hope when you buy a project vehicle that you'll do the same thing. Give those brakes some attention, but don't neglect the brake lines, especially on vehicles that are really, really old. But even if they're 10, 20 years old, I would still give them a good inspection and just verify with your hands on it that you're not putting yourself into a bad situation. So anyway, more coming soon. But yeah, though, I guess the good side is we got a lot of stuff done underneath the truck, and yeah, we can continue to move forward. So that's what we're going to do.